Welcome back to Ask Sloan, everybody.
Sponsored by Zentavos. Keep more of your money.
Welcome back to Ask Sloan, everybody. I'm Sloan, and I'm here with Emmanuel Guerrero. He's a city councilman with Pasadena, Texas. He's also a project manager, a servant leader, and part-time therapist for the friend group there. And I can definitely relate to that. We just like helping people. Is that right, Emmanuel?
Yes, you already know, Sloan. Thank you for having me. Definitely an honor and pleasure to be here with you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm honored that you chose to come on, and I'm really excited too. This is the first time we've had somebody from local government on the show, and I think it's a very important topic. You know, we get beat up with the federal government, right,
Right.
all day long, and it's it's kind of nasty out there these days, but there's so much more going on in our local communities, and I think it's really important that we get more involved there because that's where like real change is going to happen in our lives. You know, my dad he likes to say, it doesn't matter who the president is, it doesn't change my life at all. If you just turn the TV off and don't watch, you'll never even know. I think that's a small blessing for being in America because I think there's plenty of countries where it absolutely does matter who their leader is.
Right.
And there have been dramatic changes over our short lives, but not to the tune of major conflicts in our country and stuff like that until the recent kinds of scenarios. But I think that local government is really where we need to get connected and we need to start serving. So I'd like to start with a question to kind of kick us off, if you're good with that. What do you feel like the role of government is in our country and in our society? What is government supposed to do for us Americans?
Of course, no. Well, first of all, Sloan, I'm grateful that you highlight the impact that local government has. I always have this discussion with people when I'm knocking doors and they're like, "Oh, I just voted the presidential. What you do doesn't matter. Or this doesn't matter. School board, city council." I said, actually, it does. I could challenge you. And the gentleman heard me out. Said, "Okay, let's see." I'm like, "Okay, just give me 3 minutes now, and I could change that." So you pay property taxes, right? Property taxes on your house, right? They said, "Yes." Right. Typically, we're the highest besides property taxes. Like the school tax. And do you know who decides the school tax? The increase or decrease? The local school board. Those are elected by you. Um, Now for city council, you drive down your street and there's a pothole there. It's just bothering you, and I highly doubt you could get a hold of the president. But if you could, I don't think this would be on his priority list. That's where you call me, your local city council member. I fix a pothole, brand new streets, local drainage improvements, new parks or maintain parks that we do have. So to your point, our role in elected office, we're servant leaders, and I tell people, my district serves between 18 to 20,000 residents. So like, oh, you're the boss in your district, your community. Well, no, I actually have about 20,000 bosses. My job is to be a servant leader, and I'm elected by the people for the people. So re, leading initiatives that reinvest and develop our community. Those are where my promises. I've been honored to lead that, but be a part of that driver of change while listening to all the community members of priorities, and often it gets blurred. Like, what do you want? And I often tell them it doesn't matter what I want because I exclude myself, and it's about what the community wants.
For
So
sure.
a good example was was COVID. Was a controversial getting the COVID shot.
Okay. Yeah. Vaccines.
Yeah, getting the vaccine. Thank you.
Yeah.
And so, sometimes I tell people, sometimes we don't do things for ourselves. We do those for others. Like of course, like anything else, there were side effects. There were other things that came of it, but I did it because I had younger siblings, and if I get it and it puts them in a safer spot, then okay, like let me get the vaccine. When it was running for office, oh, do you want to force people to get that? Well, first of all, we don't force people anything. And they're like, well, what is your stance on that? I'm like, it doesn't matter. And it's like, so you can't give me an answer. No, it doesn't matter because if I'm pro vaccines and the community is against it, I will defend what the community wants. If I'm against vaccines, the community says I'm pro vaccines, I will go that route. But I'm always a servant leader, listening and enacting the wishes of the community. I'm the voice that was elected to represent the wishes of my community. That's how all politicians should enact and carry themselves. We're failing to see that, especially with long-term incumbents now. I mean, feel like I own this seat. I'm like, my seat is not mine. My city council district seat, Pasadena is not mine. It's the community seat, and they put me there, and they keep me there.
Absolutely, absolutely. I love that because we live in a um, representative democracy, and so what you just described there is the whole purpose that our founding fathers developed government around was to be representative of the people, right? And so that it's not what our politicians desire; it's what the majority wants. I definitely think, and and maybe I feel like it's definitely gone away from that, right? I don't think at this point in our society the majority is determining those outcomes. But I don't know how that kind of flows because it's so divisive right now. But let's go back to the question: what role? So you said the local government role, the role you're in right now, is basically to tend to the needs of the community. And
Correct.
and you mentioned streets, right? You mentioned civil architecture, basically, right? Streets, drainage, parks,
Infrastructure, policing,
policing.
reinvestment,
Okay.
redevelopment, community growth, all those aspects fall under the scope of the roles that fall under our role.
The and that's a city government. That's a
Correct.
city government. So so that's what the city government is there to do. Also, you mentioned some municipal government, which would be the school board, right? Right. And there's water district boards and things like
Correct.
that, right? And so, but then let's go to the state government. What is the role of our state government for us? Like, what is the state government supposed to do for the citizens of Texas? And I know you just recently ran to be a part of the state government in district. So what should we expect from our state governments?
Of course. So the state legislature convenes every 2 years in Austin. At that time, their systematic development was representing an area roughly between 185,000 200,000 residents, and try to push forward bills that would reinvest, redevelop their districts. Also for the state, I know there was a example. Water has been a very controversial issue. They were focusing on developing desalination plants in Galveston. So
Okay.
these are initiatives that they could bills that they can introduce, they could enact laws. I mean, some of them have deep implications, repercussions that we've seen over time. Some could be reprimanded. I mean, so their goal is to be able to facilitate, develop, and bring to the floor bills that could later be passed into law in theory.
Okay. Okay. So to pass laws, and those laws are supposed to do what?
Uh, it depends. There's different laws that have been in place. Um, well, let's take a step back. There's different committees within the state house.
Okay.
You mentioned water boards, which is very important. Water is a
Water.
very
Water's
big
huge.
resource right now that
Yeah.
we're talking about. The biggest or committee is the appropriations committee because they appropriate the amount of funding allocated
Okay.
to
Okay.
each it's throughout the state.
Gotcha.
They
Yeah.
There's an education committee, there's health committee. I mean, they just introduced a bill funding increase funding for the research of sickle cell,
Okay.
which is
Sickle
a
cell
blood
anemia.
disease,
Yeah.
anemia, which is
Yeah,
a blood
absolutely.
disease. So these bills are intended to be passed into law to be initiatives that tackle certain aspects of life, whether education, quality of life, health, development. Mainly development is a hot topic right now. Again, going back to the water desalination plants. I
Okay.
mean, that's a big thing. We might run out of water in a few years. I mean,
Yeah, it's my understanding that we've depleted our aquifers to such degree that it's a big problem. And I know my wife is on is on a mud district water board, and
thank you to your wife. The mud does a
yeah,
lot. People don't realize.
absolutely. No, it's very important. It's very
Yes.
important. And I know that for sure that specifically like Harris County and I think all across Texas, we're going to a above water system. It's called so I think it's surface water, right? Surface water versus aquifer. So we've drained the aquifers so much, they're going to surface water so that we can hopefully start to replenish those aquifers. Otherwise, yeah, Texas is going to run out. And I know our deserts are growing. And so that's a problem. So state government, protect the environment, okay? Protect,
Right.
land, if you will. You did mention that they did a bill, and it's about sickle cell anemia, right? And it's development of research in sickle
It-
cell
co-
anemia.
Continued increased investment to sickle
Increase
cell
investment.
anemia.
And so let's unpack that a little bit. Where does this investment come from? And what does that mean? So obviously governments are operated by taxing, right?
Correct.
Okay.
The main driver, property tax.
So property taxes in Texas is the main driver, right? And so are we saying that the bill is saying, hey, we want to allocate some of those property tax funds to researching sickle cell anemia treatments and cures?
Correct.
Okay.
To reinvest into research, into programs that promote this. And again, it all goes through the House Appropriations Committee, who
Sure.
they appropriate all those funds allotted from predominantly our property taxes.
And do you feel like that specific, and don't get me wrong, like I'm all about, like, look, my daughter has special needs. Okay. So, and it's a situation where there's very few people that have this situation. And so there's nobody working on it. Okay. So believe me when I tell you that funding for medical research I find to be extremely important. Okay.
Right.
But I don't know how I feel about allocation of my property taxes for those things necessarily. I don't personally understand how the government, our state government, is going to pick winners and losers when it comes to where our property tax revenue is supposed to go to funding medical research. I mean, there's a whole lot more diseases out there than just sickle cell anemia,
Of
right?
course. So that's a valid point. You said how they're going to pick and choose the losers. And the reality is that's what it is. You pick and choose. And that's why it matters who you elect to represent you. I'm not sure if you know, but a lot of people don't know who their state representative is. And,
And I don't know who mine is. I'll be straight
okay,
honest.
I appreciate the honesty.
I am not involved in local government like I believe that I should be.
Mhm.
And I think that's a problem. And that's why I really wanted to bring it up in this podcast. Because I think, look, we can vote for the president, great. Okay. That happens every 4 years. All right. And that affects a lot of change. But there's going to be so much more change affected if we get involved at the local level.
Agreed.
When
I tell people it trickles upwards.
it trickles up, not
Yes,
down.
yes.
It
And
trickles up,
to
not
your
down.
point, you said,
Absolutely.
I don't know, and I want to highlight that. I don't know, how I feel that funds are allocated this way and not that way. I mean, if we sit here and talk about, there's a lot more areas that need funding. Let's just go basic public education.
Mhm.
They've gutted the public education. Who was that? The Texas legislature, who pushed the bill that pushed for vouchers. I mean, to your point, special needs programs. I mean, those are being cut in not only public schools, but in general, the benefits that
Sure.
can do that. I mean, capping insulin. That was a bill at the congressional level, at the countrywide level.
Sure.
Our kids in the foster care system. It's very interesting, to me, that we could support, and it ties back to education as well. We can be pro-life, and I'm all for whatever people's choice or preferences, but yet we can't commit to feeding that person, that adult, and giving them the tools necessary to be successful. Let's say if they're in the foster care system, or health issues, or you mentioned your daughter has special needs. My cousin has special needs. I mean,
Mhm.
being present, being allocated more resources to that. But yet, I mean, we're here. So that's where the contrast occurs at the Texas legislature. Priorities with your state representative. When's the last time you called them? When's the last time you seen them? And that was my choice,
Sure.
that to hold my state representative accountable. And I mean, local fights get very ugly. The disappointing part is like, people believe it's their seat. It's actually the people's seat, and anyone could run for that. And I choose my seat as well. I've been open to. I said, when I ran, I unseated someone who had been there 30 years. He was 84 doing this, and I told people,
Wow.
just give me a chance. And if you don't like me, feel free to vote me out next election.
Yeah.
It's like, hold me accountable, because if you don't do your job, what happens? We get laid off. So the same thing, I would urge everyone to research your candidates regardless of party, because if we break down the fundamental part of parties, both have issues. Both could do a lot better.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Emmanuel.
And they're
Absolutely.
your employees. So
Yeah.
if you don't like them, vote them out.
Yeah.
It's your right.
Yeah, and that will actually affect, like you said, the trickle up. That'll affect major change. And as you noted, there are unintended consequences. There were some very I'm going to call them good reasons, okay, for vouchers, okay, for some unfairness when it came to, and this is what everybody's always about, is unfair, right? Okay.
Mhm.
But there was unfairness when you had families that were paying for private school, you had families that were paying for homeschool, and then on top of that, they were having to pay property taxes to the public schools. And so basically their money was going to fund other children's education, and they were getting no support to help with their children's education, right? And so that was the quote unquote unfairness, right? And then you could break that down into class warfare. Well, if you've got the money for private school, whatever, blah blah, like, you know what I mean? Like, it gets real complex, right? Okay. But then there's unintended consequences, which is that the public schools then now have less resources available. Okay. And to be perfectly honest with you, the special needs program, my brother had special needs. So all growing up, he was in the special needs classes and stuff like that. And so public schools need like big funding for that, because they actually do provide some really good resources for special needs students. And I'm not going to say in all circumstances, but I'm going to say I'm going to say the teachers that I know that are doing that, God bless them.
Yes.
They care, and it matters, and actually, my brother was diagnosed in such a way that, like, he was never going to amount to anything. And, he just got his CDL license. My dad just dropped him off to pick up a big, huge 18-wheeler this week, and he's on the road, and and that's a testament to all the support that he got along the way. And he was in the public school system his whole time. So I think you're right. These problems, I'm personally pro-life, but politically, I'm kind of pro-choice.
But I will challenge you that these shouldn't be a political issue. When people tell me, "Oh, how do you feel?" I'm like, it doesn't matter how I feel on the topic, because, look, I'm clearly not a woman. I will never be a woman. I will never understand the struggles and difficulties women go through. So that should be a decision between them and their healthcare provider. I don't think the law or anyone should have anything to do, especially not someone who doesn't understand your struggles.
So and that's kind of my point, right? Like, I don't I don't personally believe that God gave me the authority to tell someone what they can
Amen.
and can't do. If he's not going to come down and stop it from happening personally, right? Well, who am I? Okay. At the same time, that doesn't mean that I agree with the circumstance. Okay. Because my wife and I did not choose those options. We had our children, and we even had an opportunity to get genetic testing. Okay. We never did, my daughter was born with special needs. That's what happened. We love her. We're going to care for her. That's just our thing, but we don't judge anyone else. Everyone else has their own circumstances. So that's why I say I'm personally pro-life, but I don't necessarily, I don't know where the line has to be in the government always, right? I definitely don't think that we should be promoting certain things, okay? But that doesn't mean we should completely criminalize them either, okay? So I think, and I think to your point that the media, social media, even our own representatives, they do not really explain the complexities of the issues that we are dealing with.
I mean,
They make it a hot topic, right?
Yeah.
It's murder or it's protecting women's rights, right? It's not like,
Do you think that falls on the electorate though? That's the issue. Like, the electorate on us not being informed. So their messaging is stationed to be more generic and just more hoorah and rally the troops. When at the end of the day, look at that representative, that council member's track record. I've gone on record voting no on tax increases. I've gone on record on creating scholarships for my personal council budget, which is very limited. We're far smaller than Houston. I mean, I've gone on record purposely and intentionally reinvesting in the community. So it's a choice. It's a choice. And they've made the choice not to do that. And historically, it shows that. So, and again, we talked about earlier, I think you and I, about the electorate, about, people getting out to vote. I mean, now sometimes we play these identity politics. That's on both sides. And
No, absolutely. Both sides have it wrong. Okay.
yes.
Like we're not divided because of Democrats or Republicans. We're divided because of both of them.
Mhm.
They've decided to make each other enemies, right? And that was one of the things that I was going to ask you about is when are we going to be Americans again? You know, but we could talk about that in just a second because I want to reflect on your question. Whose responsibility is it to explain? So in this information age that we live in, right? And you know, it's gone back, you know, ages. I mean, when we studied the American Revolution, same kind of thing, right? Messaging, okay? Marketing is a tool, okay? Obama ran on hope and change. I mean, that's the one I remember, but every single one of them have like this little, you know, Donald Trump is make America great again, right? Okay, it's like, what does that mean? You know, what does hope and change mean? What does make America great again mean? What does it mean that, hey, you know, you're a murderer, you know, if you want abortion or whatever? Like, again, we pigeonhole these ideas into, you know, I think the absolute worst slogan ever was defund the police. If you really unpack what the truth behind what they were trying to say was, I could get behind it. I mean, I made mistakes. I did drugs. I got locked up, you know, so I've seen injustice in our justice system. Okay. Firsthand. Now I did it. Like I did, you know, mine was justice, right? I committed the crime. I did the time. It is what it is. But
what system is perfect? That's often what I tell
what
people.
system is perfect, right?
It's just like our public school, you're defunding it, but how can we invest in the same thing? Defund the police. Hey, let's identify areas of opportunities. But again, messaging.
That's why the messaging was so wrong, because it was like it vilified all police. Okay, and that's not the right answer to the problem. The problem wasn't. That doesn't mean that police didn't make mistakes. It doesn't mean that they didn't need to be held accountable. For sure, they did, but that also doesn't mean that we don't have real criminal issues that we need to protect society against either. Like we've gotten to this place where the marketing is not working the way that maybe it's intended, or maybe it is working the way it's intended. I don't know. Like I think so I guess let's say, how do we get to a place where we unpack these issues more effectively and stop vilifying each other and really just start focusing on how to solve problems versus who to blame for the situation? Because I feel like one of the things that you brought up in your running was accountability for ICE, right? And I think that if our immigration laws are flawed, okay, and I think all of our laws are flawed. So like sure, okay. And so that means they need constant work. And that's what we have our representatives for. So if they're flawed, they've had a lot of time to fix those, okay? Like we could go back to Ronald Reagan, okay? We can go all the way back to the 80s. We could probably go back to the 70s. We could probably go back farther, okay? Our immigration policies have not been managed well, okay? And so it could have been fixed, okay? Or it could have been improved. And they could still be doing that, okay?
But it became a hot topic.
So why aren't they? It was
politics.
A political football.
It was a political football.
Political football.
You know,
I'm getting elected based on my ability to vilify the other side over this issue.
You know, and I work with a lot of business owners who employ hundreds of thousands of people, and even they're feeding the squeeze right now. So when we talk about accountabilities, yes, we have to restructure. Everyone in the room will agree with you that we require comprehensive immigration reform. But that doesn't mean we can open the borders and freely let everyone in. There has to be a balance. And there hasn't been a true commitment to that. A good example was in 2008, the DACA was created for Dreamers. And that was supposed to be a pathway towards citizenship. And what happened? They've been left in limbo by every administration since.
Absolutely. So, and every administration has had a situation in which they had both houses and the presidency. So this is what my point is. When, like, as a people, I want us to wake up. I want us to wake up to the fact that we've got to step back from this fight of Republican, Democrat, Democrat, Republican. And we need to fight for the people. We need to fight for not the truth. We need to fight for reasonable solutions, right? And that goes back to local government. If you don't know who your representative is, and you don't know what they're doing for you up there, if they're not doing the job that you want done, so how much time are you spending paying attention to any of this? Most people don't even know that you can.
Yeah.
That you can go online. I mean, before it was online, it was like super hard. But I mean, since like, the year 2000, like it's been pretty easy to get involved with government and find out what's going on.
And it should be easy to get in touch with your representative. My voters have my number. They call me personally. They have, and they find me on Facebook. Again, people that are older, but like, hey, and some are like, wow, I didn't think you'd reach out. Like, it's my duty to reach out. And these state representatives and higher ups, they have staff. I don't. I'm a one-man show, and I still make the effort. But to go back to your point of the marketing, what I do a lot of work with the ADL, Anti-Defamation League, and what we see there is that hate sells at every level. That's why Democrats say Republicans are bad, Republicans say Democrats are bad, and it continues to create this cycle that vilify topics like abortion, immigration. I mean, I have this theory, and that was the first bill I wanted to introduce, that I think judges and law enforcement, like constables and sheriffs, should be nonpartisan, because the justice system is supposed to be blind.
Absolutely.
So that was one of the first bills I want to introduce, because they serve everybody. Why are we making it party related?
Right.
I mean, and so again, hate sells. See, with the Anti-Defamation League, we've done studies of anti-Semitic attacks and hate crimes. And so the status was here. What we've seen now is that they went up and then they stopped, they flatlined. But the average and the norm has increased rate, has now flatlined at a higher rate now.
Okay.
So again, just hate sells in people. And the disappointing part is, are we full of that much resentment, hate, frustration? And if so, why? I mean, I've had things happen in my life that have been very difficult to overcome. But you know what? At the end of the day, as long as I'm good with the man upstairs, one day we're all going to have to answer the man upstairs. And I tell people, I live my way in the manner that if tomorrow or today was my last day, I'm ready to answer the man upstairs. And a lot of people say that, but we have to reevaluate these almost Christian nationalist approach of, oh, you need to do this and this and this, but you need to, and laws or things that I said, that if I said it, they're no longer if I said that I didn't say it, they're no longer effective. Laws don't apply the same to us. What is that approach? That is where our country is. In a pivotal moment where we're letting hate lead, where we need to despair, or we need to let lines shine and unify and focus on the things that matter. Regardless of party, regardless of gender, regardless of age, regardless of ethnicity, we know and we understand there is a problem in this country right now.
No, there is, and I think you hit the nail on the head that hate sells, and right now, and I think like you said, it's grown and then flatlines and it grows again. No one has tampered down the rhetoric. No one. They continue to build on it. The entire machine, even in the slogan "Hope and Change," it's saying that there's a problem that we need to come from. Make America great again. It's saying that there is a problem that we need, and that's what, and that was the whole thing. Is like, hey, there's a problem, but the problem isn't benign. It's not we're running out of water. It's the Democrats did this law and now we're going to have no water. It's vilifying the Democrats. It's the Republicans hate you. So this is what's going to, like that, like that's where it all kind of like stop it. You know what I mean? Like, hey, just identify what's happening. Let's get reasonable debate going and let's figure out what the majority wants. And then let's try it. Let's also recognize we're creating new laws every day.
Right.
If we try it and it doesn't work, don't pretend there's not another session next quarter that we can try something else.
I think that's the humbling aspect of it. I often tell people, I'm not a politician. I'm a servant leader, a community advocate. And we discussed that, that's the issue, to say hey, let's rectify the next cycle. That means I have to humble myself and admit I'm wrong. And that's hard for a lot of people. I'm the first one to say, we've all had situations, I say, share with my personal friends where I've been out of line and they put me aside, hey, what you said wasn't right. I hurt my feelings. And younger me, and that's where we have those cognitive reasonings or being intentional about a younger me, like, oh, well, you're just a baby. No, like, oh, you know what? I didn't see it with that lens. I'm sorry. I was wrong. I didn't realize it made you feel that way. I'm sorry. But humbling yourself and being able to put yourselves in people's shoes. I mean, I think the empathy factor and the humbling aspect we've lost almost as a nation.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. And so let's wrap up part one, and we're gonna have you back for part two. And I think that really hits the point that we need to make for our wisdom of the week, right? So here's the wisdom of the week, everybody. And it's gonna have a couple of parts here. Part one is get involved with your local government. Recognize that that's where it starts, okay? And really dive into what the problems are in your community and what the politicians that you're voting for have said that they're going to do about it. And you vote for the one that you think that's the right solution for the community, okay? And then number two, if we're going to sit around and wait for the media and for our representatives to tone the rhetoric down, we could be waiting a very long time. We need to absolutely stop vilifying each other. Okay, we need to become Americans again and just recognize we are a country of a melting pot country full of immigrants that are here trying to build a better life for our families, right? And instead of vilifying each other, we need to just identify problems that we want our government to solve and the solutions we want them to enact to do so, and stop pointing the finger. Okay, like we gotta tone it down, everybody. We gotta stop hating each other, and we really need to start focusing on how do we build better lives for each other together. All right, well, it's been an episode. Thank you so much, Emmanuel. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that button, and join us for part two. We'll see you soon.
Sponsored by Centavos. Keep more of your money.